Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here in Washington, D.C. to talk to Eric Stewart, the president of the U.S.-Poland Business Council, 25 leading companies, particularly defense and aerospace contractors, all American, who belong to this organization. You advance the interests of American industry in Poland. You founded the organization 10 years ago. And how many other countries have you expanded your footprint into? I know it's Lithuania,
So we have Hungary, we have Romania, actually have an organization that covers all of Central Europe, from the Baltics down to the Black Sea as well, with a very large focus on the defense industry.
So talk to us a little bit, right? We're having a strategic renaissance in the relationship between Washington and Warsaw. Obviously, the United States at the end of the Cold War was one of the biggest proponents for Poland joining NATO, Poland being part of the EU. Now we have Polish officials who are at the highest rank, Donald Tusk being at the top of the European political hierarchy as well. Talk to us about how the strategic relationship has deepened, particularly over the last few years. We have the F-35 deal where Poland has bought into the world's most sophisticated combat aircraft program, missile defenses. Talk to us about the totality and the deepening of the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right in all the things that you said. But Poland really is becoming and has become one of our most strategic, important partners anywhere in the world, not just in Europe. And we're actually going to see that even take one step further come the hard Brexit of the Brits leaving the EU. Poland will be absolutely essential and critical. And you've seen that in our relationship between President Duda and President Trump. I mean, they almost literally have the BFF bands on their wrists. They have become absolute best friends. F-35 deal, essential. But a lot of it is because it's very clear to Poland who their most important ally is and who their most important friend is. Yes, they belong to a very special club, being in the EU, but they also have a very special relationship with us. And I think push come to shove, if something were bad coming from the East or somewhere else, the first phone call that Morawiecki, the Prime Minister, or President Duda would make would be to Washington.
And obviously a lot of conversation within the NATO context because of Poland and Poland's deep and unpleasant history at the hands of Russia in particular, I think stings very particularly and resonates particularly in Warsaw. What do you see as the next steps of the relationship, right? I mean, F-35 was something the Polish officials were interested in. The missile defense competition was on, off, competed for a long time, finally decided. What are the next big steps in Polish military modernization and economic investment and expansion that you think is sort of the next level?
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's the economic relationship. That's the next level. Our political pillar is very, very strong. Our military pillar is outstanding. We need to have the economic pillar even stronger. And that's why some of these military deals with the F-35 and with others will create opportunities for large American companies to work with smaller and medium-sized Polish companies, work on technology transfer, work on job creation. But then what the real next step is we want to see Polish companies doing business in the U.S. and integrating into our economy. And that's really when you create a relationship that's so rock solid and so strong that you couldn't ever break it.
And where do you see opportunities for expansion, right? There are pockets and parts of Polish industry that are as sophisticated as anywhere you'll find in the world. There are other pockets of it that, as part of the National Industrial Reform Plan, hovers between state subsidization and is not quite as competitive. We were joking a little bit about some of that a little bit earlier in a respectful fashion. You know, where are the areas where you think that there can be greater Polish expansion, for example, into the United States market?
What I'd really like to see is some of the IT and some of the technology that's created in Poland. I mean, Poland, you got young Poles that are creating really cool, super cool video games that my children play today that were created in Poland. Taking that IT, learning and working with American companies who are great at entrepreneurship and commercialization, marrying those two together, and I think you'll see a great opportunity for the Polish, its own industry, to really grow. And so what we want to see is a lot of Poles taking advantage of and learning from the American companies that are doing business here, and not in any disrespectful way, just in we've been doing this for a lot longer than you have, learn from the things that we're doing, but doing it in a true partnership that allows Poland to really grow and become its own strong, independent self. And I see that happening.
It is a industrial powerhouse. It's a giant population, very, very well educated, very sophisticated nation technologically, politically, and economically. But it's also a country that is a little bit on the fence and is being coveted very, very strongly by Europe on a lot of large programs. We've seen a lot of engagement. Europe is building a new industrial strategy in terms of preserving, maintaining, and expanding European industrial skills. How do you see that playing out? As Polish officials have told me, look, I mean, we're in Europe, we're a proud member of Europe, but at the same time, the relationship with the United States is something that's strategically important, playing to that sort of subconscious Polish fear that in the event that something else happens, NATO might not be there, and so we're going to have to fight and look for perhaps allies that will be able to help us in that context. How do you see that playing out? Do you see that as an opportunity for American industry through Poland to play a role on some of these programs, or could that be something that disadvantages certain American investments and further cooperation? I mean, how do you see that dynamic playing out for your membership?
Yeah, so it's hard to say how exactly that scenario plays out as you've outlined, and I think it'll differ in various areas. But one of the things that I truly admire, and I've been working with Poland for the past 20 years in my government capacity and my private sector capacity. One thing I admire about the Poles is the Poles are going to learn from the Europeans, they're going to learn from the Americans, they're going to learn from the Asians, they're going to learn from themselves, and they're going to do it the Polish way. And they're going to take that information and they're going to do it their way. And that's something that you have to admire about a country, because what a lot of times you have is you'll have the Americans or the French or the Germans, they'll come and they'll put their finger in the face, they do it my way. No, the Poles are going to say, thank you very much, we'll learn from you and we'll do it our way. And that's the way they should do it. They should develop the Polish way.
One of, and this is the last question, one of the challenges that folks see in the political situation, it's a conversation that I have with, Polish relatives as well as friends about the political situation. Obviously, that's a concern from a European perspective in terms of the tilt to the right of Poland and the sense that it's walking away from certain European democratic principles. How do you see that affecting the dynamic overall, or is that something that is that won't affect the broader strategic relationship? I mean, how do you see that evolving?
Yeah, so it definitely, we have not seen an impact on the economic side. We've not seen an impact on the commercial side. The decisions that are being made in Poland have not impacted our companies, and we've not seen any direct consequences from that. Again, I would put it in the category of doing things the Polish way, the way they intend to do it. Some of those same critics who are criticizing the Poles are probably also criticizing the Hungarians, are also probably criticizing the Czechs. And they're also probably criticizing the Americans as well. So you're seeing a trend of governments that are doing things in different ways, and some would call edgy, some would call undemocratic, some would call however you want to label them in different media outlets. But the governments and the leaders were elected. They were given mandates, and they're doing what they believe is right for the people that elected them. If they're not, then they'll be unelected in the next elections.
And last question, talk to us about the organization and why it's a little bit different. I mean, there are a lot of bodies that are looking to foster trade. You guys are a little bit different. Tell us how you guys are different.
Sure. This organization is 100% American. We do not have consultants. We don't have lawyers. We don't have NGOs. We're just American companies. We don't have any Europeans. We don't have any Polish. We don't have any Chinese or Russians. And we did it this way simply because, in my opinion, America is still the gold standard. Whether it comes to defense companies or IT companies, or agriculture companies, we're still the gold standard. And very frankly, countries like Poland and Lithuania and Hungary and Romania, where we're doing business, they like America. And you can't say that about every country in the world. They like America, and we have a personal, strategic, wonderful relationship. And so why dilute that great homogenous brand by allowing anyone to join? So other business councils and associations and chambers will allow anyone to join the organization. We decided not to do it that way.
And of course, Lockheed, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, Textron, and others, some of your membership. Eric Stewart, President of the U.S. Poland Business Council, absolute pleasure. Best of luck. And hopefully one of these days we can have a drink in Warsaw.
Sounds great. Thanks, Vago.
Dziękuję bardzo.
Dziękuję.